Mr. Tony Elumelu, thank you so much for your time and welcome to NTV.
Thank you.
You have a white paper on domestic resource mobilization focusing on weaning Africa of external financing and focusing more on domestic financing. What role do you see banking intermediaries like UBA playing in that? And also pension funds play a critical role. But how do we unlock that capital?
Thanks for this opportunity to interact with you this evening and to speak on a topic that is very topical, interesting to me, and one that should be interesting to everyone on the continent in particular. Access to capital is so critical for economic transformation of a country, of a nation, and of a continent. In Africa, we need massive capital formation. We need massive investment to power or fire our infrastructure development program. But in Africa, we've seen, and this is what the white paper, the UBA White Paper spoke to, that we have about over $4 trillion domestic capital. And so the challenge is, how do we mobilize this or channel this domestic capital to work for African people? That is the challenge for everyone. And banks as financial intermediaries, banks as very important economic agents have a critical role to play in making this happen. And this is the point UBA was trying to make, that no one but us will develop our continent. Already, we have about $4 trillion in domestic capital. Let's put this to work for the African people. Let's invest and channel this to infrastructure development on the continent. But equally important, we need to think of how to leverage some other domestic saving mobilization mechanisms that exist. Pension funds, as you said, is a critical savings mobilization, capital mobilization tool. I'm happy that African nations are beginning to embrace pension funds, are becoming more disciplined and emphasizing it. Let's take my country, Nigeria, for instance. Nigeria, up until early 2000, we didn't have a pension fund system. Today, what has been set up, it was set up under President Obasanjo's administration, and every month, each and every one of us contribute to it. The workers contribute, and the employers contribute, and trillions of naira has been saved through this process. This is part of capital mobilization. No nation has ever developed without massive domestic capital mobilization, because you always need a blended capital. What you have within and what is coming in to fund infrastructure. Oftentimes, when foreign capital comes, they want to co-invest with local capital. So we are saying, let financial institutions like United Bank for Africa and other, not just others, plus Afrexim, plus all the major international regional banks, as well as big African financial institutions, let's work together to mobilize further and channel this capital into productive uses for our people in Africa. And that's why we say we have about $4 trillion. Let's mobilize and channel this to work for the African people. How do we get it to work for African people? We have unemployment challenges in Africa. We have infrastructure deficit in Africa. We'll talk about AI. Africa cannot catch up with AI, or even join the bandwagon, without significant improvement in access to electricity. For a continent of 1.4 billion people, and about 800 million people don't have access to reliable electricity, how can we even catch up with the rest of the world? So we need this capital mobilized to work We need to see massive improvement in electricity on the continent, transportation. The transportation system and network we have in Africa was set up during the colonial era and was structured to encourage export of raw materials out of Africa, but not structured to encourage intra-Africa trade. We need to fix and re-architect our transportation infrastructure in Africa for us to be able to deliver for our people. So these are some of the things we must do in Africa to create jobs for our people, but more importantly, to drive prosperity on the continent.
But as you say that, Mr. Elumelu, a lot of the pension capital you're talking about is risk-off in the sense that it lacks a safe harbor of government securities. Hardly will you find them deploying capital
Thank you.
in infrastructure, which is high risk and long tenant. So how do players like yourselves begin to crowd in and de-risk that?
Listen, social media gives freedom to everybody, but social media also permits illiteracy. I'm a member of the IMF Global Council on Entrepreneurship and Economic Development, and I spoke about pension funds, the need for pension funds to be used for constructive and transformative areas. And on social media, some people were saying that, please, let them not touch our pension funds. Let's keep our pension. And I was just laughing at the level of ignorance and illiteracy. See, nations that have developed have leveraged on pension funds. Pension funds have been used because pension funds is like long capital. Long term. Oftentimes people blame commercial banks that they don't fund infrastructure, that they don't fund entrepreneur businesses. Commercial banks by nature, the sources of their deposits is not long-term, short-term. Yeah. And so, by nature, are not wired to do long-term funding. Only from maybe if they deliberately raise some long-term funds or their own capital, etc. Like United Bank for Africa, we can do some of the things we do because we have capital reserve over about 4 trillion naira now. So, which has been formed over 75 years. So we can take some. But indeed, they are not wired to do so. Pension funds are supposed to help fund most of the ticket long-term type projects that help to catalyze economic growth and prosperity. So as you said, it is true. When I see pension funds invest in government securities, it is lazy. Pension funds should be used to fund catalytic infrastructure projects. There are risks, but then analyze, look at the risks, see if there's any insurance mitigation you can have in place. But that's part of what we're saying. Let our domestic capital work for the African people. Let's channel the pension funds should not be assessed based on interest they make from government securities. They should be assessed based on returns on significant infrastructure investment they've deployed resources and capital to that help to move the needle. That is what we need on the continent. I'm very passionate about this, so let me not go to.
Final question, because we are out of time, is this: how do we deepen our capital markets to enable us to have the asset classes which then crowd in this capital to be able to take up some of these projects?
The capital market is a market where people come, people are looking for funds, and then those who are looking for investment opportunities, okay? And so we need to strengthen regulation so there'll be confidence, greater confidence. We have good regulation today. I mean, in some of the markets we operate in Africa, I'm impressed at the level of regulatory oversight in Nigeria and other places. So we need to continue to strengthen regulatory the regulation, because that gives confidence to all players. You want to create a capital market where both indigenous and foreign players can come and operate in. Also, we need to make sure that we have securities that are liquid. And in fact, we have security, which I've seen it happen. Before, when I started the bank I founded first, Standard Trust Bank, the stock exchange in Nigeria at the time encouraged us to come to the market and give discounts for pricing discounts, which is good. We need to see other exchanges do similar things. Countries that don't have exchanges, they should try and develop exchange, because it's one source of raising medium to long-term capital to enable entrepreneurs and businesses actualize their aspirations. I've been a beneficiary of this. Most of the things we've done by going to the market to raise money. So it's a market that should be encouraged. We also need to deepen knowledge, expertise in the market, okay? But that comes with time. As you play, interact, etc., it comes with time. And technology is so critical for this. So there's a whole lot we need to do. But for me, I would say regulation, and then when you have a growing economy, getting the right business environment that will enable entrepreneurs to succeed, a growing economy, as people grow, they want to grow bigger, they need to go to the market to raise for more capital. Transparency, very, very important. And creating liquidity in the market is critical. And then where you have a market that brings expatriates come to invest, ease of capital or repatriation of the earnings is very, very important too. So those are some of the things we need to do. But it is something that's inevitable.
Thank you very much for your time.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Brilliant question.